It always glitches when I first start this, so I never know if I'm actually on it. Alright, give it a couple minutes for people to come on in. Got one already. Start spamming the chat with your favorite movie of the year. You one person. Expose yourself. Show yourself. You like my... Oh god, I don't know. Wait a minute. There we go. Like my tree. Teeny little tree. I got my elf back there. You probably saw that in my Polar Express review. And wait a couple more minutes for people to show up. While we do that, I'm going to find my phone. I don't know where it's going. Hold on. One sec. I got it. Got it. Wow. I think we're already here. I feel like I just did this. This year went so fast. And yet it was a really long year. Does that make sense? Like, it feels like it went really fast. But I think back to things that I did at the beginning of January, and I'm shocked that it was only this year. God. I feel like that happens mostly with work. Is that anybody else? Because it's like you're there every single day. Alright, well, give it a couple more minutes. Starting right at 6. Got lots of this one. Let's see what I got here in the stack. Fantastic movie. I'm hoping to go over in some level of detail all of Edgar Wright's stuff because I friggin' love him. I actually just got the Cornetto trilogy for Christmas. Super excited about that. Let's see. Got John Wick. These are not the movies I'm talking about tonight, just while I'm waiting. John Wick. I still have to see the rest of 3. I saw 2 on a plane in the beginning of 3 on the plane. And I still have to see the rest of 3 and then 4. Spider-Man No Way Home. Obviously, top tier. Spider-Man Spider-Verse. Now, which one of these is better? American Graffiti. I own it. Still have not seen it. Violent Night. You got to watch this one. Actually, it's really good. It's like one of my new favorite Christmas classics every year. All right, we got people coming on. So we'll start in just a second talking about all these movies from this year. But let me tell you, I watched a lot of movies this year, and yet there's still so many I could have watched. It's wild. It's like my cinema sign. And my I don't even know what. I got this from a friend. It's the funny thing about this one is that if you throw him, roll him, no matter what, he will always land on the bottom. It's really fun. Obviously, his name is Ginger, so. All right. It is close enough. Let's start. Guys, welcome to the end of the year recap for most movies that I saw this year that were new, but I didn't get to review. There's just There's just a lot of movies. It's a problem. But I did this last year, and I started doing this last year because I, first and foremost, am a perfectionist, and it bothers me when I watch a movie and I don't get to talk about it in a review. But obviously, I can't do a review for every movie that I see because there's like a million of them that come out a year. So I started doing this so I could kind of talk about briefly some of those big movies that I happen to see, especially towards the end of the year, that I was like, oh my god, I wish I'd been able to talk about this. And unfortunately, that still will not cover about 25 movies I still need to see. I watched 40 new movies that came out this year. Um, and yet there are still 25 that I still want to see. It's wild. It doesn't help when like half of them come out in November and December. But we're going to talk about a bunch of them starting now. All right, so I'm going to start with the comedies first, or slight comedies. First one I'm going to talk about is it's actually the one that I watched most recently. It was probably the last new movie I'll see this year is No Hard Feelings. No Hard Feelings I've had on my list to watch for months since this came out. And I am so glad that I did get to finally watch it because this movie was hilarious. Firstly, Jennifer Lawrence, just putting it all out there, quite literally. This movie is just so good because she doesn't hold back. She just goes for it in terms of looking like not like a bum, but like, I don't know, like kind of like a very real person with very real problems, like just regular financial struggles, things like that. But also, you know, in her life, she's a little bit go with the flow about stuff, maybe a little bit too much. Her thing is that she doesn't commit to relationships and people get hurt because of it around her. But she really, I mean, she just like I said, puts it all out there, and she was amazing. And it's really fun to see her in things where she can just kind of let loose and just do whatever. This movie really actually shocked me in a couple spots in terms of how weird it got. But the other actor, let me look up his name again so I can get this right because he was so good. Andrew Barth Feldman. He was awesome in this movie. The only other thing that I know that was in is a High School Musical series. I'm hoping one day to watch that so that I can do High School Musical, the series, the review, and then maybe listen to the album so I can do High School Musical, the series, the album, the review. That will be the only reason. I did a video called X/Men. You guys know this is what I would do. But anyway, Andrew Barth Feldman was amazing. He was hilarious as this character who is more, I don't want to say why, because there's specific reasons, but he is more introverted. He is more very to himself. He doesn't go out anywhere. So this is why Jennifer Lawrence kind of has to come in and get him out of his shell a little bit. And there was just so many, like the way he put over lines, especially towards the beginning third of the movie, that he was very quiet and very subtle, but very hilarious. Loved him in this. And just the general story is it kind of goes the way that you would think. It's a little bit of like a standard plot and standard script, but that's okay with this one because it's kind of harkening back to like 90s comedies and back to just all these wacky kind of screwball off the wall things that go on, kind of like, or even early 2000s, kind of like Superbad, stuff like that. These sort of rom-coms, sort of just more comedy with a little bit of romance in it, but it's got to have like a house party scene and everything. But of course, the funny part here is that, well, it's kind of, he's 19, Jennifer Lawrence is 31, 32. And, at least this time around, Licorice Pizza, it's not a felony, but it is kind of odd. But they do strike up like a pretty, like an actual genuine friendship, if nothing else, in this movie, which I really love. But yeah, I mean, there's not too much to say about it because it is just like, if you're gonna find this funny, you are gonna find it, like it's your kind of humor, you're gonna find it funny. and it was hilarious. It's just those three things: the humor, Jennifer Lawrence, and Andrew Garth Feldman, really really great. Definitely go check this out if you're looking for another one of those kind of comedies. But absolutely loved that one. It's definitely going to be high up on my list for the year. Speaking of which, I finally have entered the rank of actual film bro because I made a letterboxd this year. Finally. I think I was just daunted by the fact that I would then, my brain would be like, now you have to enter every film you've ever seen. I'm not probably going to do that, but I'm going to start with this year. So yeah, that's going to be high up probably on my letterbox. We'll see what the final is of that. Going on to the next comedy that I'm going to talk about, Bottoms. Now this is another one that when it came out, I heard about it. I was like, this seems exactly, or not exactly, but like very, if you liked Booksmart, you're going to like this movie. And then I just kept hearing things about it, and it was like getting insane ratings critically and from audiences, and that doesn't usually happen with movies like this. So I was very, very excited to see it. And I saw it, and I thought it was fine. I don't know. I thought it was good. Basically, all right, so I understand that this movie is supposed to be hyperbolic. It's supposed to be exaggerated. It's supposed to be, basically taking all of these movies that are like this, like Booksmart, and kind of making it huge, kind of doing it to the point where it's almost a parody, like a satire of those movies. And I get that. Problem with this is that whereas it does that for like 80% of the time, then there's 20% that tries to take it seriously. And it's like, that's to be expected. I get it. But for me, it didn't quite gel like I wanted it to because it was so wacky and at parts dumb because it's supposed to be. The parts that I'm supposed to take seriously now feel like they're kind of conflicting with each other. This kind of came manifested a lot in the professor or the teacher. I guess he's not professor; it's high school, but teacher played by Marshawn Lynch, which I mean, he was great. I loved him in this movie. He was hilarious. And the thing I liked about his character in this one is that if you've seen things like Edge of 17, or any of these high school movies, there's always that one teacher that is like the go-to teacher that's gonna like give you the advice, or like, I can't not give you the detention, but here, I'm gonna give you this little piece of wisdom or this comfort or whatever. And he's kind of that in this one, but it's weird. Like I don't want to say he's not reliable, but he's a little bit, I think, more lax than a lot of those other types of teachers in those roles. And that made it really, really funny. But he was also really supportive of what they were doing. What ruined it for me is that, no spoilers, but, in the kind of all was lost moment of the movie, that is to kind of be expected to come, he kind of flips his perspectives on a lot of things very, very quickly. Like something happens and everyone's kind of like annoyed at this one character, and he comes up to them and, I thought, okay, he's going to give these words of wisdom, and everything. And then not only does he not do that, kind of, but he then goes into this whole tangent, and it just didn't work for me. It completely lost me with that character. Because it was just kind of weird and ridiculous and didn't really go with anything. And then his entire character just flip-flops to not being supportive of anything that was going on, even though that's not really the message. It's weird. I wasn't really sure what the message of the movie was. And again, it is supposed to be more wacky and hyperbolic and everything. I get that. But it didn't quite work for me. And that was just one example. The good things about it, though, the main characters, Rachel Sennott and Io Edebiri, I love both of them in this movie. I want to see more things with Io Edebiri. I think I'm saying it right. Edebiri, and she was great. I absolutely loved her, and I loved both of them in this movie. I really liked Rachel Sennott. after like Bodies, she was great in that. So they were both really great in these roles. I loved a lot of the high school stuff. I loved that there were just some like the hyperbole of a lot of the stuff was so funny. Like the fact that the quarterback for the football team, it's the whole thing of like jocks are just jocks and they're always wearing uniforms and everything, and that's all they ever talk about. He wears his uniform everywhere. I mean, like shoulder pads and guards and all of it, all the time. I don't think he ever wears anything else, and I think that's hilarious. It's just stuff like that. Like the principal is just like the worst. He's so bad. He's like really corrupt. All of that was really, really great. The other thing that really kind of bothered me though was that the actual plot of the movie, like the premise of the movie, where they're making basically this like self-defense club, takes up like, I don't know, 3 scenes. Like it's barely actually in it. The movie itself is actually only like an hour and 25 minutes, which I thought was weirdly short. But it felt like there was just other stuff in there that they just cut out, I guess. I'm not really sure. It just felt like that premise of it should have been in there more, but it just didn't feel like the story gelled as much as I wanted it to. The premise was there for a little bit, and then it went on to other stuff, which was fine, but they didn't really they came back around to it right at the end, but it just wasn't in there as much as I wanted it to. But again, it was still a fun time. There was a lot of really funny stuff. I personally still like Booksmart way, way better. I think this was kind of a watered down version of it, kind of like you have this idea here, it just didn't really fully, come out like I thought it would. But again, still a pretty fun time. So I would say it is one of the comedies of the year that I would watch it again for sure for a lot of the moments. Okay, and then I have one more comedy that is sort of a comedy, sort of a dramedy sort of thing going on here. And that is because it's basically 2 halves. One is funnier and then one is really, really sad. And this is Dream Scenario. I was really excited about this movie because, it's Nicolas Cage. That's mostly the reason I was excited about this movie. But because the premise was so cool, this guy just starts popping up in people's dreams. And I think it's based off of a real thing that happened, this really weird phenomenon. And it was a very interesting execution of this concept. I really, really liked it. So first of all, I was the only person in the theater when I went to see it. I don't know if that's happened before. I don't think it has, because I've always wanted that to happen. I was really excited for that to ever happen in my life, so I could just, laugh as loud as I want or whatever. Even though I knew as soon as I laughed out loud for the first time, I would be like I would laugh and then I'd be like, just making sure no one was in the corners, But for me, I guess you could say that was kind of like my dream scenario. This is where editing would be really great. Anyway, so I was in there by myself watching this, and I kind of wish I was with other people for this one, only a little bit, because of some of the moments that were in this movie. But I'll get to that in a second. Nicolas Cage is just a chameleon. I know that it's like Nicolas Cage in a role is, oh my God, it's Nicolas Cage being wacky again. But honestly, he goes into it so hard in some of these roles that it does just feel like a different person. And in this one, he looks a lot different too. He's got, almost bald head, beard, and everything. He's got this big coat on for most of the movie. So, he looks a little bit different, but he really just went into it. And I absolutely loved him in this because his character has to go through a lot of shit. So the first half of the movie is about people kind of starting to realize, like, oh, this guy's in my dream. This is really weird. And everybody's noticing this. And he kind of gets really, really famous. And there's this one part, I'm not going to say what it is, but if you've seen it, you probably know what I'm talking about. This is one part that just feels so ridiculous. I couldn't help but bust out laughing with no one in the theater. Thank God. But it was so ridiculous. It was one of the weirdest things I have seen all year. Nothing close to Beau is Afraid, but And then the second half of the movie, it gets really sad. Because, and this isn't really a spoiler because I think this was in the trailer, the dreams start to turn to nightmares. And so now everybody's against him. because they are scared of him. And they're like, what did you do to me in my dream? And he's like, I didn't do anything. This is literally the manifestation of that meme where it's like, you know, your significant other is like, I'm mad at you. Why? Because of something you did in my dream last night. And I didn't do that, you know, in real life. This is just that thing is a whole movie. And it honestly made for some really interesting thought points. Interesting thoughts? Is thought points? I don't know. But, because he doesn't do any of this stuff, why is he being outcasted? But at the same time, if everyone's freaked out by him, they're not going to go near him. It was really interesting. Like, I don't know what I'd ever do in that situation, but it really did a good job of, once again, talking about kind of these topics of court of public opinion and social media and how public influence can like change your life instantly in whatever direction. And you didn't even do anything, you know, and then there's a point where he tries to apologize and it looks like he's just forcing it. And it's like, no matter what he does, he can't win. And it was honestly where it started as really funny. It honestly almost ended really frustratingly because I was like, I don't know what this guy's supposed to do. It was really good. I didn't think that this movie about Nicolas Cage being in people's dreams in very weird ways would make me think this much. And obviously we've had a lot, especially with A24, we've had a lot of these movies that after this hour and 45 minutes, you're like, I never want to go on social media again. I hate, you know, all this stuff that happened in the movie about social media and people just piling on these comments and everyone has different opinions and it's exhausting in real life. But then after seeing it for an hour and 45 minutes constantly, you're definitely like, I don't want to go on Facebook ever again. We've had a lot of those movies that have talked about that, but every time it just helps to remind me how I feel about it after more than like an hour and a half of watching these movies, because they just do it so well. And I think it's one of those things that no matter what we think about it, the next day we're always waking up looking at our phone, you know? So I think that was, it was really, really cool to see this movie because it had a lot of those points in there. Plus the acting was just really great. The story was interesting. It just went in all different types of directions. I love stories that are very simple in premise, and then you can just take it in different angles. And it doesn't have to be really contrived in plot or whatever. You can just take it, do like Groundhog Day. I like that it's the same premise over and over and over, but he does different things each time he comes back. Stuff like that. I really, really like that. So Dream Scenarios, definitely. It's the only Nick Cage movie I saw this year, even though I think he was in, 4. I know he was in Renfield, which I didn't get to see, and Sympathy for the Devil, which I was going to get to see. And I'm like 99% sure there's another one. But at least those 3. This is the only one out of those I got to see, and I'm excited it was this one because he was really, really great in this one. So that wraps up the comedy section. Now we're going to go into the biggest section that I have, this was my biggest section last year, and I don't know how this keeps happening, but that is horror. I don't know. Maybe I just like freaking myself out now. I don't know. But let's see. Let's start with let's start with the least horror of the horror here. Honestly, this probably isn't even a horror, but The Haunted Mansion. I actually really liked this. I was really worried when they came out with the announcement talking about it. Because like, all right, they're just rebooting things again. I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but Disney rebooting just reboots, and never having a real, true new idea. But sometimes a reboot can be fine if you do it in a different way. And they did, and I liked the stuff that they did in this one. It was cool. I liked the group dynamic of them coming together. I liked the design of the ghosts in this one a lot, actually. And weirdly enough, I really liked the design of Jared Leto's ghost. It was fun. He was cool looking. He was different. And I like that, his head is like in this lantern. There was a lot of interesting stuff in this. And it also had a really stacked cast. I mean, like just a fat cast of people, because it had Lakeith Stanfield, and I love him. And he was really, really cool in this. He's cool in everything, but he was particularly cool in this. I really loved him in this one. He was great. He was surprisingly not he, but I guess the script surprisingly allowed for a lot of actually deep moments and a lot of deep scenes that went on for more than 120 seconds. Like there were things that they actually got to sit with the acting for a minute, and I was like, wow, okay, and there was a lot of like really just emotional, deep moments that come back around with the kid, with even Owen Wilson, which his twist, I guess, right off the bat. But obviously, yes, we have Owen Wilson in this movie, so wow. You got Danny DeVito, and I'm having a brain cramp. What's her name? Rosario Dawson. We have Rosario Dawson. So yeah, there was like a lot of people in this movie. And Jamie Lee Curtis. And yeah, I really like. I sound like a broken record, but I did like a lot of what they did in this one. The director apparently said that he was like, I'm going to try to, have as many black people in this movie as I can. And we're all sitting there like, cool. But the original Haunted Mansion had Eddie Murphy and his entire family. So that was fine, right? I don't know. But yeah, I was actually pretty surprised with this. I definitely thought it was going to be like, all right, I'm just seeing it to see it. We like the original Haunted Mansion, love that one. Which, by the way, that got a 13% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm not even talking like, oh, I love this movie. It's a nostalgic thing. Like, okay, yeah, it's not the best movie by any means. It's got a lot of cheese and stuff in it. Okay, I get that. But 13%? This movie did like the original Haunted Mansion did worse than like Suicide Squad. And I think maybe The Room. I'm not sure. It's close though. And the fact that the original Haunted Mansion has to be close to The Room is interesting, and I hate it because the Haunted Mansion is so much better than The Room in some ways, and in some ways, The Room is the best movie ever made. So, no, but so it's wild to me that got such a low score. But the new Haunted Mansion, definitely really really liked that one. Let's see. Yo, you remember we met in the. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not really sure what you're talking about. Ordinary 21 set. No. Yep. No. I'm not really sure. If you want to expand, maybe I'll remember. Street 20. I don't. I'm sorry. I'm not sure. I'll get back to you on that one. So yeah, Haunted Mansion. I really liked that, and I definitely think it was one of the better Disney movies in a while. Which is not saying too much, but I definitely think it was still pretty good. I liked the look of it. Pretty much, that was probably my favorite thing is the look of it and kind of like the stuff that they did with the story was really cool. All right, so moving on to what? Let's do some of the streaming ones that came out specifically on streaming. First, this is actually I think the first new movie I saw this year. I think, which was Sick, and I think technically it came out in 2022, but it didn't come out like here in the US until 2023, like right at the beginning. And this movie surprised the crap out of me because me and Jared from Halloween Horror Nights, we watch a horror movie every week, and this was one that he suggested. He was like, "Look, I don't want to think about COVID ever, but there's this new movie, and apparently it's supposed to be really, really great." And like the plot is directly about COVID, like it was made during COVID, and it's about it. And I was like, all right. And as we started watching, we're like, oh god, we got to think about all this stuff again, and it's bringing back the flashbacks of COVID. And then the movie was like really good. It took the concept, which was something everybody was making movies about, and did it really, really well, incorporating it in a way that it actually made sense. I was really surprised, considering it wasn't just we're in a pandemic generically, but this is COVID. We are addressing COVID. And it started off with like all of these things, that we were doing with distancing and masking and everything, all these little things. But the actual incorporation, not only in terms of what happens in the plot early on, but in terms of the motivations behind things later on, because the movie is kind of like a slasher. It's like a home invasion slasher sort of thing, and the motivations behind it were also attached to COVID, and they were very interesting. It kind of made me think a little bit. I've tried not to think about COVID after that, but it did make me think a little bit because it was just so well done. And because this was back in January, I don't remember like a ton, but there was this one scene that I think it was in the trailer, and she's like running from this killer, and she comes up to a car, and she's like, let me in, and then the woman's like, can you put on a mask? And it was just taking this concept and making it so that you could do twists on these horror tropes that are always around. It's like, oh, you go up to the car and try to get in, try to escape, or like maybe the car drives away. It's like, oh, you're insane, whatever. This one, it was like, oh, I'll let you in, but if you put on a mask. It was just things like that. It was scary because we've lived it, but also just because it introduced a lot of things that this pandemic, like it would make a horror movie very legitimate, especially having to like isolate and be by yourself and you can't contact people. And so it was really good. Like I said, I don't remember too much, but I know that, I mean, this was still, I think it's still in like my top 20 at least of the year. So it's like definitely in the top half. And I would not have expected that from a streaming movie in January, a horror streaming movie about COVID. I just wouldn't have expected that. Oh, these glasses were good. All right, anyway, moving on. We've got Totally Killer. This was probably even more, well, I would say even more of a surprise, because Sick was definitely a surprise. I was not expecting it to be as good as it was. But Totally Killer, again, horror streaming movie, which at this point honestly doesn't have to have a stigma like a streaming movie. Streaming movies are fantastic. But it's kind of the thing that every time you see, oh, it's just this other one that's on Hulu, it's this other one that's on Netflix, that's kind of flying under the radar, nobody's talking about it, whatever. Totally Killer was basically, so like, I think it was Happy Death Day, that was like if you took Groundhog Day and made it a horror movie. Totally Killer is if you took Back to the Future and made it a horror movie. And it was so interesting. I would say it's less scary than it is like fun or thrillery, kind of like Scream, which definitely is scarier than this movie. But again, it's another slasher movie, and there's definitely scary moments in it, don't get me wrong. But what was really my favorite part about it was the kind of Back to the Future aspect, which is that, her mom dies at the beginning of the movie. And it's in the synopsis, I promise, kind of spoiler. Her mom dies at the beginning of the movie, and then she goes back in time, and she's able to try to save her as well as other people and figure out what this killer's motivation was 30 years ago and then now, and why it's back now. And that whole thing was really, really fun. Kiernan Shipka, I don't think I've seen her in anything. I know she's in Sabrina. I haven't seen that. And I loved her in this. She was very, very direct, like very real. And what I liked about that is she kind of subverted a lot of horror tropes and expectations, because it's kind of that whole like, oh, why wouldn't you just say this? Why wouldn't you just go here? And she does, or she at least addresses like, why aren't we doing this? That was really fun. It's always good when, I mean, it's kind of what's the word? I think it's called lampshading is the term I learned this year, where it's basically you kind of address a problem in your movie in the movie so that it's kind of an excuse, and it works. A lot of the times it's fine. And in this one, it kind of does as well, because it's like, oh, well, why are they being so stupid? If she points it out, then it's better, right? Because at least the movie knows that it's not. Well, so I thought that was pretty cool. And her character overall was really cool. She was kind of punk, she was really, really fun. She was hilarious. You could definitely felt like, okay, she's going to figure this out. And she's going to be okay, because she's I guess you could, I don't know if you could call her a final girl necessarily. But if under that sort of category, she was a really, really great one. And yeah, just all of the references they make, obviously because it's a Back to the Future sort of thing. So it's time travel, it's in the past, it's now. They're going to make a lot of pop culture references. And it's one of those that maybe it'll feel dated in a couple of years, fine, but we'll get another one at that point. And in this one, they make a lot of references all the way up to Endgame, so it's very, very modern. And I liked it. It's fun. And like I said, maybe it'll feel dated in a little bit, but we get one of these kind of time travel movies every couple of years, so they're able to update it. It's more so about having fun now with it, I would say. But the story itself was really great, and the ending had a twist that I didn't see coming. I kind of had it in my brain a little bit after one very specific shot, but I couldn't quite put it together, And I think they did it really, really well. It was very, very cool. And as always with time travel, there's always kind of different things you can do with it, and things where it's like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. They haven't done it like that in other movies, and that was pretty cool. So totally killer, very, very fun. I think it's like number 12 on my list, out of the 40 that I saw this year. So it is definitely a higher one. It's very entertaining. And then the other one that was not straight to streaming, but originated on streaming, that was also a really cool horror movie, was No One Will Save You. I heard a lot of good stuff about this. And by the way, all of these, me and Jared watched. These were all ones that we had watched because we try to pick a lot of the streaming ones. No One Will Save You, I think, out of the three, I'm going to go back in my letterbox and kind of rework some things. Probably tomorrow, now that I've got them all laid out there. It's either going to be Totally Killer or No One Will Save You. I'm not sure which one will be above the other, but No One Will Save You was also very, very cool. There is no talking in this movie. Actually, there's one line. There's one spoken line in this movie. And that in and of itself is an accomplishment, because even though she's alone, the main character is alone for a lot of it, played by Caitlin Dever from Booksmart. Even though she's alone for most of the movie, the parts where she's around people, it's like, all right, well, how do you get it so that no one's talking, even though they have to communicate stuff? And it doesn't, and it feels natural. It's not like silent film or something. And they do. And it actually adds to like the drama, of the moment. It's really, really cool. They really are able to reveal a lot of character, a lot of story without any words. It's really great. But the coolest part about this movie is that it is an alien invasion movie. And not just any alien invasion movie. It is a callback to old alien invasion movies where they look like it's like a straight spaceship beamed down. They look exactly like you think retro aliens would look like. They're not trying to make it all complicated and everything. And in that respect, they actually were even cooler. I don't want to say maybe they were necessarily creepier, but they were definitely cooler because they looked exactly like what you would think the standard stereotypical alien looks like, up to the very long fingers. It was really cool. I liked the design of that a lot, and the fact that it was all quiet the whole time. The very first scene when the aliens come in was actually genuinely very frightening. I really liked that one a lot because you had no idea what was going on. There's just a couple shots that are really unsettling. And alien stuff usually doesn't really get to me unless it's very abstract, and I'm like, I don't understand this. That scares me. But this one, they did a really, really great job with it in terms of the alien stuff. Caitlin Dever, obviously, she has to carry this movie wordlessly, and just by her facial expressions, by the action, everything she does, the emotion, and she did an amazing job. I really liked every scene that she was in, which I've never seen, and she was fantastic. She really carried the movie. She had that authority to convey the entire story through just what she was doing and how she was reacting. And yeah, the whole plot, I would say for me, the first third is what I liked the most. And then I really liked the second third a lot because there was a lot of more action. And then the last third is where it kind of lost me a little bit because I was getting really confused. Since looking up what happened, having it explained, it makes a lot more sense. And in fact, it leads to a much better ending than I originally thought. I really liked the ending now that I kind of understand more of what was going on. It's very interesting. For me, I would have liked a little bit more backstory because we get a tiny bit of it. Obviously, they can't just outright say it because there's no dialogue really. There's only that one line of dialogue. But the problem is there's all this backstory to her character and there's things that happen, and we see it for like half a second, but it was built up so much I didn't even realize that that was it, and I was like, oh, is there more, or is that all we've been talking about this whole time? And so I kind of wanted a little bit more of that, and just the last little bit in general seemed to be kind of dragging on back and forth, and again, wasn't really sure what was happening when I was watching it originally. That being said, there were so many cool sequences in the movie, kind of about the aliens and taking her over. The way that they showed things, the way that they filmed things was really, really cool. I would definitely recommend it if you're a big sci-fi person. Apparently, Steven Spielberg was originally going to do this decades ago, and I think it got scrapped or something, and they never did it. And it's based off. I don't know if it was originally based off something or if this was just based off of Spielberg's original movie that he was going to do, and that would have been very, very cool. But yeah, this was really great. I think I want to say I heard that they're making another. I'm not sure. It would be kind of cool, but I think kind of where it is we're good. I don't think it requires more story, especially considering a lot of the sequences that were in here were just done very, very well, and they were very shocking. And I just want something else original like that now. Maybe harkening back to something else, kind of retro and more of the stereotypical creatures and everything. So it was very, very cool. I really liked this movie. I think it was very underrated, and not a whole lot of people talked about it. So I would definitely recommend checking those out. All of those streaming ones. Now, there's a couple others that I have on here that weren't necessarily. They're on streaming now, but they didn't start out streaming. Oh no, you know what? My bad. There's one other streaming one that I missed. I'll go over that one really quickly. That is the Pope's Exorcist. Excuse me. I need to have the water. Okay. The Pope's Exorcist. I liked this movie enough. The best part of it is by far Russell. I was about to say Russell Brand. Jeez, Russell Crowe. He was really fun because he plays a priest who's obviously he really conveys through just how his acting is in every scene. He is that priest that has seen a lot of shit, and we see that right in the beginning of the movie. The stuff that he's seen, the stuff he can do. He's seen a lot of shit, so instead of being really hardened by it, he just kind of goes with whatever is happening. He goes with the flow. He's really funny. He almost, there was a tiny part of it that seemed like he was like the Poirot of priests, which is a really weird thing I never expected to say just now. But he's got these little idiosyncrasies, just how he is, his mannerisms, how he laughs at things and kind of shoves things off, or shrugs them away. But then he's got a lot of depth and horrors in his past as well. So his character was really, really great, and I loved him. I really liked the tone of the movie as well. It's cool that this is like the Exorcist that the Pope himself has picked out. Like this guy's going to do some damage, so that's really cool. He knows the stuff. Exorcist movies are really great because you get, no matter whether it's a priest or other professionals who know what they're doing, and just like The Conjuring, it's always cool because you feel safer with those people, so those characters are always loved because you feel safer with them. And the tone of this one was pretty cool, because it's like, all right, this is one of the biggest things we've ever seen. It always is, but it's one of the biggest ones we've ever seen. This is going to be really tough. I need my best guy on this. The actual movie as a whole, I felt was okay. Personally, exorcism movies have started to disappoint me a little bit. Well, the last Exorcist movie that just came out, Believer, is on my list of 40 movies that I saw this year. It's at number 40, so I guess that really shows that they've kind of started to disappoint me, because maybe it's just me being desensitized to horror movies now. I'm never really that scared because I feel like they show too much. For me, stuff that's scarier is the stuff that you can't see, or that's implied, or more of like maybe a little bit more of like subtle possession. All Out, just like people floating in the air and the big music, and it's like it feels like a lot of special effects. It feels like Hollywood Horror Nights, and it doesn't feel actually that scary to me. Even The Exorcist, like the original, way, 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 way scarier. And I love that movie. And that I think worked better because there were a lot of those moments, but they were earned, and it was a lot of tone and things a build up leading up to it. Not that this didn't have that, but I think for me, I don't know. I just wasn't attaching to as much of it, especially when they got to the actual exorcisms and the actual confrontations with the demon. It just kind of felt like stuff we'd seen before. That being said, again, I really did like Russell Crowe. I like there was a little bit more of a mystery to this one with this specific house and everything. I was a little bit confused as to what was going on. But I would say if you're really hard pressed for another exorcism movie and you haven't seen this one, it's definitely worth looking into it and giving it a try because it's got some pretty cool things. And definitely Russell Crowe was awesome. All right, on to the ones that were theatrical releases, but are also streaming. Most of them are streaming now. The first one of these that I saw all the way back in January was Megan. And I was bummed I couldn't do a review on this one because I was actually very pleasantly surprised with Megan. Because when I saw the trailer originally, I was like, oh, it's just another one of these Annabelle-looking movies, and now it's like a Gen Z girl, and whatever. It looks okay. The more I saw the trailer, though, I was like, actually, this kind of looks good. It looks pretty creepy, and she does like the whole crawling in the woods thing, and then obviously she has her dance. But even that felt creepy, and it was like she's doing this dance while she's like killing people, and I was like, all right, you know what? Maybe this will be pretty good. Plus, it had the actresses from Get Out and Haunting of Hill House in it, so I was like, let's give it a shot. And it was really good. And, it didn't blow me away or anything, but it was way better than I thought it was going to be originally. And it was basically like if you like Chucky, like Child's Play and those kinds of things. It kind of I feel like it was a lot like that actually. It sort of blurs the line between straight up wacky doll slasher, which is just kind of ridiculous, and then more build up, creepy. This doll's doing something. It's sitting still, but the camera's zooming in on it, so that it's gonna do something. I thought that was really really great. That they blurred that line. I do prefer more of a creepy end rather than an all out slasher end, but it kind of just makes more sense for this type of movie. And there were a lot of moments in the movie that shocked the crap out of me in terms of what she did, and I also thought that the effects for Megan, like how she moved and everything, obviously she is a doll, but that they actually had to build her for this movie was really, really well done. And the link that Megan had with her child, I can't remember the name, but with her child, and the link, the relationship between that child and her older sister has to take care of her, all of those relationships were really interesting because there was a lot of strain, a lot of tension. I loved the sisters' dynamic, but then I really, really loved how Megan kind of earns the trust of this child, and then wreaks all kind of havoc because of it. I felt that was done very, very well as well. And from what I can remember, the opening sequence was very shocking. So yeah, that one was also really great. Again, it's just kind of like another big slasher-ish Child's Play sort of movie. So if you're into that, go watch it if you haven't seen it already. Yeah, it was good. I really liked it. Lots of good stuff in it. I think there was also, I'm trying to remember, there was definitely a sequence in there. There was a couple where the child is testing out interacting with Megan. And I don't know, it's scary that we're coming to a place where that seems normal. That kind of thing feels like this is an actual girl. And it's not. She's literally a robot. But that's frightening. That's weird. Oh, God. But moving on to more frightening things, let's talk about the Boogeyman. The Boogeyman is based off of a Stephen King novel, I think, of the same name, and it stars Sophie Thatcher from Yellow Jackets, as well as what's her name? She plays Princess Leia in Obi-Wan. Let's see, Princess. Actually, let's just do. Is that her? Wow, she's very young there. Vivian Lyra Blair, as well as David Dastmalchian, even though he was only in it for like a bit. I really would have thought he would have been in it more, but whatever. For what David Dastmalchian is amazing, and he can always play very unsettling. And for the little bit of movie that he, was in for this, he was great. He did exactly that. I loved it. I would say the Boogeyman for me was a very standard, I had some fun with it movie. It didn't blow me away. I think I like Megan probably more than the Boogeyman. I think it was just very, very standard. But it was interesting. I liked some of the stuff that was in it. I think my favorite thing about it was the use of lighting in the movie. That was really, really cool. For a lot of these, obviously because the creature lives in shadow. And anywhere that there's light, it can't be. So the use of lighting in the movie was definitely its biggest high. I really want to get just that orb of light, because it was very cool because, the young sister, whenever she thought she would see something, she'd roll the orb towards it and it would slowly illuminate. And that was pretty frightening because it's is something going to be there or not? I really, really liked that. And yeah, Sophie Thatcher is amazing. She was great in the movie. There was this part that, it's weird, out of the entire thing, the part that stressed me out the most was that she was trying to be with the popular kids and she had them over and nothing was happening and they were making small talk. That was scarier than anything else I saw in the movie. But that part was really, really stressful. I'm just, I think I'm a little tired of, obviously this is based on the book that was written a while ago, but I think I'm a little bit tired of the trope that the bullies can get away with everything, and the moment that the victim of the bullying starts to retaliate, then they get in trouble. And it's so that, it's I'm not going to fault the movie for that. It's in everything. I'm just kind of sick of that one. But that scene was actually really, really great. There was a lot of other tension that in the movie that didn't revolve just around the Boogeyman. And then the actual design of the Boogeyman, while not completely original, was still very cool. I really liked that a lot. There was just this kind of overall feeling, this overall aesthetic that was just shadow and a little bit of a luminance, over the whole movie. That was very cool. I liked that a lot. Visually, it was a very, very cool movie. Story-wise, it was okay. It was kind of basic, but there was a lot of cool things as well that I liked about it. Again, if you're just looking for, if you're a horror fan that's I watch horror movies all the time, I need a new one. I need to get my horror fix. This will do just fine. It's got some cool stuff in it. And then let me see here. I think I'm on to, my last one, which I saved for last because it may not have been the best of the 8 that I've talked about here in terms of horrors, but it's definitely one that probably left the biggest impression. And it's also one that I think went under the radar a lot. And that is Cobweb. I'll start off by saying it's not a perfect movie by any means, and I'll get to that in a second. But where it needed to be creepy and scary, it was. So Cobweb is about this kid who, obviously, he's a small child, lives with his parents. He's a single child, and he hears noises coming from his bedroom wall, knocking and then voices. And it seems like the parents have something to do with this. And you kind of start to see, I'm not going to obviously say it, any of what actually happens, but you start to see a little bit more about the parents and how they unravel and how much they actually know about what's going on here and what's actually happened with these noises in the wall. And I don't want to say too much. I will say this. It's about an hour and a half, so it's a very short movie. And that's, again, every time I see an hour and a half movie with a really good premise like that, I know it's probably going to be really good because it's going to be right to it. It's not going to drag. It's going to be scary. I'll start with a lot of the good stuff. So the parents are played by Anthony Anthony Starr plays Homelander, and then I forget her name. Hold on. Lizzie Kaplan. Yeah. Um, it stars those two as the parents, and they are really really good. Now, from the fact that Anthony Starr is one of the two of them, you can probably guess to which end of the spectrum these parents are in terms of they're pretty great and in terms of they've got issues. But they were great. There was a lot of tension and a lot of suspense and a lot of just unease that came with them because they very, very much say that they love their child. And then they very, very much do some things that go against that statement. As well as the kid, the actor who played the kid himself, Woody Norman, he was great. I think he did a really great job of kind of being on his own here. You know, he doesn't have a lot of support from almost anywhere except for his teacher, who, you know, she knows something's up, but she doesn't know how to quite go about it, and she's not really sure if she's allowed to. But I think the kid did a really great job, the actor, of portraying this kid who's resourceful, you know, and he's able to take care of stuff because he kind of has to, you know, and he's in this really traumatic situation. Now, the reason that this is probably one of my favorites, or at least one of the ones that has affected me the most, is because it is genuinely very creepy. Not even just in terms of some of the parent things or whatever, but about halfway through this movie, and I mean halfway, something happens where it's kind of a twist. It's something you saw coming, but the twist for me is that I went, okay, there's still like a half an hour left in this movie. What else could possibly happen? And there was just a whole like the stuff before this sequence was great. The stuff after the sequence was okay. The stuff in the sequence, like these two scenes back to back, it was just so good because stuff happens and then it implies that other stuff's gonna happen. And there was a scene in this movie that was so suspenseful because you realize, oh shit, we're screwed. And I don't want to tell you what it was, but something started to happen. I'm not gonna tell you what it was. Something started to happen, and I was just like, I was hiding behind my blanket. I was like, I don't even want to know. It was so good. I gotta be so vague about this, but it was really great. I have not been that suspenseful in a while. Jared said that, you know, he saw it, and he said that it was the scariest movie he's seen since Hereditary. I don't know. Maybe I could agree with that. It definitely had a lot of effect, I'll say that. And visually, there was a lot of cool stuff in this movie. There was, again, a lot of stuff with shadows that I really, really liked, and how they played with that. And just, you know, like just pacing of scenes, sound effects, all of that. There was a lot of promising stuff visually in this movie from this director. Let me see who it was. Director Samuel Bowden. I want to know what else he's done or what else he's going to do. He did Marianne. I haven't seen it, but I have heard of that, and that seems like it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, there was a lot of promising stuff in this one that it's kind of like Talk to Me, where it's like, was it perfect? No, but I want to see more from these people. The reason it wasn't perfect was because, again, kind of like Bottoms, it seemed like there was more to this movie than they maybe cut it out. It felt not like that the shortness was a bad thing, but it definitely felt a little bit choppy. The story wasn't quite together. It felt like there was a lot of really incredible ideas. They took like stuff that was pretty good, and visually they directed the hell out of it. So that it was very interesting because like the tone of the movie is just very in a corner. It feels very empty, but scary. You know, like you're in like a closet or something. And I really, really liked that. The design was really cool. It was just the story kind of was okay for me. It kind of went in a couple different ways, and it was a little choppy. And then also the end, for as much as I had suspense about what was going to happen, when it happened, it started off really cool. It started off really, really cool. But then there were some things that happened, and I was like, I'm not really sure how that could have happened. And then they do this reveal. And I just don't understand the decision. I don't know why they chose to do the way that they did it. But it was fine. It was only for like a couple seconds. And then the way that the movie actually ends was also very interesting because I didn't expect it to end there. And I don't know, it was a little unsettling. So yeah, it wasn't perfect, but I'm still thinking about this movie. I really, really liked what I saw. It didn't affect me like Hereditary or anything like that, or even Midsommar, in terms of like a visceral, like I am scared to go to bed. But it did have enough of an effect that I was like, that was pretty cool. I would definitely watch some more of what this guy's going to do. All right, so that is the horror category. I have one more category of films to go over. There's only two of them in there, and that is actually foreign films. Funny enough, I actually saw both of them in the same night because I went to see one, and then my friends texted me and they said, "Hey, we're going to go see this at the Charles at 9:45," and I'd never actually been to the Charles. I meant to for my entire life, and I'd never actually been. So I was like, you know what, sure. So first, I went to see Godzilla -1, and that was one of them that I what I had in my poll to talk about at the end of the year, or at least to have a review for, and that's when I did the Sweet East, and I said, all right, well, I'll promise I'll talk about Godzilla -1 as well as Dream Scenario and Eileen. I will say I actually didn't get to see Eileen because I don't know what happened, but it's like not in any of the theaters anymore that I was going to go to. I'm not really sure what happened there, but I'll give you my thoughts on it briefly in like a Instagram post or something when I see it, because that is just one that I really wanted to see. But Godzilla -1, I heard from one of my friends who is a very he is a diehard, like the movie's got to be good. He ranks things on a holistic scale. He says, which I guess just means that like of all art as a whole, I might have this wrong, but of all art as a whole, this is where the Marvels ranks. You can probably tell that that's not going to be high, but he loved this movie. He was like, "This is the best Godzilla movie," and it's not close. Well, maybe since the original or something. But I think the reason, partially, is that it is actually a Japanese movie. It is a kaiju. I think I have the right word. It's kaiju. And I haven't actually seen Godzilla or King of the Monsters. I've only seen Godzilla versus Kong. But I get it. I know what Godzilla is, and I get I get the what he does and everything. In probably at least in the new Godzilla movies like the 2014 one, it's probably roughly about the same. But this one, I'll say when it started, I was like, all right, this is pretty good. It had a very Jurassic Park feel, like a very Jurassic World feel, actually, especially in terms of how Godzilla moved, which is not what I was expecting. I was expecting, Godzilla's very, goes very, well, what's the word I'm looking for? He's stiff. He was moving. The boy was moving. But it starts off with this very violent scene that wasn't anything insanely new, but it was just really, really well done. It sets up this main character, and it sets up how the look of Godzilla is going to be, which is terrifying. He is terrifying looking in this. But what I liked about the look is that even though he looks terrifying, you can still see they gave simultaneously his face that look of the old claymation Godzilla. I don't know how they did it, but they did. It was really good. And I'll get to more about that in a minute. And for the first 20 minutes of the movie, I was like, okay, this is pretty good. It feels kind of standard. I think this family dynamic and all these things that are happening, there's a lot of really great emotion, a lot of great relationships, but it's pretty good. I'm not super blown away or anything. But the more this movie goes on, actually, funny enough, there is an exact, I don't know if it's an homage. If it's not an homage, it's kind of a ripoff of Jaws. At least from what I know. I don't know, maybe if it was, Jaws ripped something else off, I don't know. But in terms of hunting it in the sea, and then there's this thing that they put in its mouth to try to blow it up. See where I'm going with this. And all of the sequences up through the midpoint of the movie are really, really good. But then you get to the midpoint, and holy shit, it is one of the coolest theater experiences I have had. It's probably the coolest theater experience I've had in terms of scope and visceral. Like you feel like you're in the scene since Dune. It is a movie you have to watch in theaters. I would even say an IMAX or Dolby. It is wild. And it is because of a number of things. One, again, the Godzilla design, which looked horrifying, like in a good way, but they did keep the way that he walks onto on when he's on land, when he's like destroying cities. He kind of does this like slow with his hands up kind of thing, but it doesn't look cheesy. It looks like how he would probably walk. And the level of destruction, the scale, I don't even know how they've begun to film it, because it is so it's so makes it feel so realistic to how it would be to having these huge explosions, these huge buildings crashing down. It was really cool. But I think the thing that put it over the top for me was the score. The score was like somehow the perfect blend of like, this is a big monster movie, fun, but also like I am genuinely terrified by this score. Like it was really good. It made me feel very different. I can't really offer a better explanation than that. It made me feel different. And maybe, I don't know, it was just cool because it was like, I don't really watch a lot of these Godzilla or Kong movies, but it made me feel like, okay, I absolutely get what you're doing here. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying in a way that like, this is scary, not in a horror way, but in a way of like, this monster is about to eat me, which I guess is sort of horror, but not like Cowboy. And yeah, so I really, really loved that. And then the rest of the movie was just as good because that's when I really started to get into like, I love the relationships. I love the, the national pride. They all come together, this small militia of people. And it's like, in any other movie, like in an American movie, I don't know that I could think of like a scenario in which they realistically defeat this monster. This monster is gigantic. I don't know how they would do it. They come up with ideas in this movie that are like, that could work. And I was surprised that it was so believable. And then the actual sequence of trying to defeat him and everything was just so good. And again, the relationships, the family dynamics, this, even though this is, it's Godzilla movie, so it's a big franchise, but it's not like Marvel movies or Star Wars where things happen and people clap in the theater. That's like really the only times it happens is big fandoms like that, right? There's something happened in this one that didn't even have to do with Godzilla, and people cheered because the relationships built in the movie were so good. I really liked it. The tone was just so interesting, but it is I think going to end up being in my top 10 of the year. We'll see. But I think it's going to end up being up there because it was very good. It quite literally blew me away. I will say this though, and it's funny. I said this actually for when I went to see The Exorcist, Believer. And I hate to be a broken record about it, but there were more people in the front row who wouldn't shut up. Or the row in front of me, I mean. I was really surprised. Like, I don't know. If there's any young people out here, 12-year-olds, I don't know. Maybe they weren't even 12. They were acting like they were 12. Just don't go to the movies if you're going to talk. I want people to go to the movies, but I want them to enjoy it. So just shut up, or just sit down at the very least. They kept getting up, and I was like, guys, you're ruining this because it's such an incredible movie. The scale of this movie is insane. But I would absolutely recommend going to see Godzilla -1. Yeah, no, it was great, and it seems like they're gonna make a sequel, and I think it's really, really cool. It just the fact that it was actually Japanese, so it was like, all right, that they're gonna have the authority, they're gonna do really, really well with this, and like the characters were really fun, they were really great. Here and there was some, I would say maybe some basic motivations and things like that, but then they took that and made them deeper. it led to deeper things that happened. So yeah, Godzilla, great. I wouldn't have thought it. I honestly, when this movie came out, I forgot to mention this, when it was coming out, when it was promoted, I thought this was another of the 2014 ones, and I was like, well, we're getting the next Godzilla versus Kong, I think next year, and I've heard hardly any promotion for this. I was like, is this part of this? I didn't even realize it was like a different thing. So this is like totally separate. You don't have to watch all the other stuff to watch this one. You can watch this one on its own, and please do. It's really great. So I watched that. Then after that, I went straight to the Charles to see The Boy and the Heron, which I was very excited was going to be coming out because it's a new Studio Ghibli movie, and I've only seen 5 thus far. I've seen that one. I've seen Spirited Away. I've seen My Neighbor Totoro, Kiki's Delivery Service, and Nausicaa. So I still have to see Howls and Princess Mononoke and all the big ones. Wind Rises, that stuff. Castle in the Sky. And this one I was like, all right, well, cool. It's a new one. He hasn't put one out since, I don't know when the last one was actually. I actually don't remember. I have to look that up. But Miyazaki has not put out a movie for a bit. At least a couple years. And I was like, cool, I'm really getting into Studio Ghibli now, and especially into like Miyazaki stuff. I really want to watch this one. And, called The Boy and the Heron. I was like, it kind of doesn't sound terribly interesting, even though I know it's probably going to be. But it's like, Howl's Moving Castle, Spirited Away. Even Kiki's Delivery Service is like, that's kind of cool. The Boy and the Heron was like, it sounded interesting. The funny thing is this movie is the wildest shit I have seen from Miyazaki ever. It was a fever dream, guys, and it didn't help that, and I feel bad about this, but it was in the Charles, and actually it was all 3 of us, the people that I went to see it with. We went at 9:45, and it's only 2 hours. I mean, it's long, but it's not like super long. It's a regular, movie length, and we were all falling asleep about halfway through the movie. But the funniest thing is that I don't believe that me being more awake would have helped me enjoy it or understand it any more than I already did. And actually, I may have enjoyed it even more because the second half of this movie is a fever dream. And me being half asleep was the weirdest experience. I just wish I was more tired and not actually falling asleep. So, but I watched the whole thing, I promise. But the first half of the movie, I'll just say this is probably, at least of the ones I've seen, and of all of Miyazaki's movies, one of the heaviest ones that he's done. It's definitely the heaviest of the 5 that I've seen. But I know Grave of the Fireflies, I think that's Miyazaki. I don't know if that's just Ghibli or if that's Miyazaki. I know that one is very, very heavy and depressing. This one is very heavy in a number of ways. Right off the bat, it shows a lot of trauma, of this little boy, which is also interesting that the main character is a little boy, because normally it's a little girl. It's always a child, and it's usually a girl, but there's sometimes it's boys. But yeah, this is very interesting how it started off. The animation was weird because it was like Studio Ghibli, but it had a little bit of it was sped up, because it was kind of supposed to distinguish that this is like a memory or a flashback. And the animation was really weird, but it was cool. And I loved, of all this stuff, I loved the animation in this one because it is just the most updated it could be while still being classic Ghibli animation. The character of the boy, he's great because, again, he's another very resourceful, very mature character. Mature for a 12-year-old boy. And he was really, really cool. I liked him a lot, and which is good. The thing about the movie is that the first half is pretty grounded. It goes into the PTSD that he has about some things. It goes into a lot of really sad things. It's kind of funny. It starts off like a Studio Ghibli movie usually does, where there's some weird things happening, but it's mostly grounded. You're going to get to the weird stuff later, especially like the beginning of Spirited Away, or My Neighbor Totoro. It's like more grounded things. I would say out of the couple that I've seen, this is most like Totoro. These people go to this house, they find some weird things are happening. I was disappointed there were no soot sprites. Those are my guys, but whatever. It's okay, because there's actually another set of creatures in this one that I'll talk about in a second that I absolutely adored. Um, but I thought it was really funny. Well, not funny, but wild that the first half of this movie is very grounded, and then it just goes balls to the wall crazy later on. There's this tower, and once he goes into the tower, stuff's gonna happen. Stuff's gonna get kind of weird. But even before that, I thought the heron was gonna be like this, this sort of majestic symbol of something. It was gonna be like the heron flies by and roll credits, and it's like, the heron was the boy all along, something like that. The heron was scary as shit. The heron was weird, man. The way they animated the heron was so weird, and there's a very specific reason for it that until you understand what's actually going on, it just gets weirder and weirder, and it's creepy. It's unsettling. That being said, when he does go into the tower, after that, it's like things happen. I can tell you that things happen. I can't really tell you why. The whole point is that he's going in there to save somebody, and I think he does. I think. I'm not really quite sure. A lot of things happen, and I can't really say. I have to watch it again, and I actually do want to watch it again, if for nothing else, the fact that I originally watched it subbed, and now I want to watch it dubbed, which normally I don't want to do with foreign films in general, but specifically for Studio Ghibli. But this has a stacked cast for the American. It's got Robert Pattinson, Willem Dafoe, Florence Pugh. Oh God, who else? There's a ton of people. Dave Bautista, I think. There's a ton of people in this one. I've heard that the voice acting is really, really good for the dub version. So I am willing to do it for that one. But I definitely need to see it again, if to only just begin to understand what happens at the end of this movie. Because the second half is just a lot of adventure stuff going on. And they're very, very cool. But it's also just kind of hey, I don't really know. Normally these things happen, and it's all right, well, we're getting to a point, Spirited Away. There's a lot of weird stuff that happened, but there wasn't too much of a goal or plot. It was just kind of survive and then go back home. And this one, there's a little bit more of a goal. And so I'm what are you doing? But I will say it has to have some of the most gorgeous scenes and shots I have seen in a Studio Ghibli movie. It is so good. And there's one in specifically that is it's fireworks. I think I remember fireworks, but there's all these tiny little I guess the soot sprites in this one, the creatures that I think are really cute and I love, are these tiny little white, I don't know, they look like marshmallows with eyes, and they kind of fly and float everywhere, or maybe they were stars. Again, I was kind of falling asleep. I loved them. I'm very excited to watch this movie again, if only for that scene. And then it's one of those things, though, that there's a couple, fun and games moments in the script where we go through different, just adventurous things, and then I'm all right, now we're gonna get to the point of the movie, and man, they get to the end, and I still am not sure. I get it a little bit. I get it a little bit. I'm not really quite sure what happened. If I'm more awake next time, maybe it'll help. But yeah, it's a very weird movie. I didn't expect it to be that weird, even for Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki. Now, a friend of mine made this good point that Miyazaki usually writes a story through storyboarding. He'll draw it out instead of writing out the story. I think he'll have a general basic idea of where he wants to go with it. Clearly, it's a story. It has to sort of come to something. But he storyboards it out. This one feels the most like he was just storyboarding it and then was all right, we gotta wrap this up. We gotta pull this together in a way. Not in a bad way of just all right, it's rushed, but in a way of we're slowly getting there and I'm just not really sure what was going on. But it definitely feels like he was so into these storyboards and the animation and the drawing and the look of it that they were how's the story coming? And he was oh, I don't know. That's a good point. And Yeah, so I would say that's a pretty fair assessment of how the movie seemed to be. Um, but I'm definitely very excited to watch this one again because I need to understand. I would say for me, this is probably at number 4 of the 5 that I've seen, but just because um, Totoro, Spirited Away, and Kiki and Spirited Away especially, I love to death. I love those movies. Um, so yeah, probably. I mean, I've only seen 5, so 4 out of 5 is still like it's fine. Um, but I would definitely say if you're a Ghibli fan and you haven't seen this yet, go see it because trust me, it is not in any way boring, and it's probably the opposite. You're gonna be like, I don't know what happened, but it was fun to look at. Yeah. So those are all the movies that I saw that I didn't get to review. I actually thought there was going to be more, but if, like I said in the beginning, if you can believe it, there are 26 more movies that I have in my letterbox queue of wanting to watch from 2023 that I still have yet to see. There's just so many, and I'm going to put them in the comments in the description after this. And a lot of them, or some of them, I'll see in January for sure. I'm gonna do a review for Poor Things in January. I'm really excited to see that one. I'll probably see Eileen, a couple others. I really want to see Next Goal Wins. There's a couple that there's a fair amount that I want to see. I don't know if I'll probably see them in January. I'm not really pressed to see them, but I do want to see them at some point. Like Blue Beetle, I want to see how that was. Renfield, I definitely still need to see. There's just there's a bunch. Um, John Wick and Mission Impossible. I couldn't watch those because I haven't finished the others yet, so I didn't want to watch those yet. But there are a ton that I would say I will be talking about in some fashion in the next couple of months. Because I'll probably watch some in January, and some of them may show up on my top 10 list. I don't want to do the top 10 until I've seen. There's a couple others that I think could be contenders for a top 10. So I want to see those first, and then I'll do my top 10. So I'll be able to talk about some of them. And then for the Oscars, I know a lot of these that I haven't seen yet, like Zone of Interest and Anatomy of a Murder, Anatomy of Murder, or Anatomy of a Fall, Anatomy of a Fall. Like those, Past Lives. I haven't seen any of those, and I know that they're probably going to be nominated for something. So I will probably also get to talk about those as well around that time, and also Saltburn. This movie, like, it came out of nowhere. Like, all I've been hearing about is Saltburn, and I thought it was one of those that was just going to go under the radar. Okay, Promising Young Woman director, she's doing another one, and I really like Promising Young Woman. So I think it's Ella Purnell, I think is her name, and is that right? Hold on, no, wait a minute. Promising. I think I'm getting people mixed up here. It is directed by Emerald Fennell. I think Ella. Yeah, I think that was the girl from Yellow Jackets. But anyway, so Emerald Fennell, she did Promising Young Woman, and then she is doing this one. And I was like, all right, this looks pretty kind of interesting. It looks, a little bit weird, but it looks like it's not a whole lot of people are going to watch it. It kind of seemed like what was that movie, Serrano, that came out, like, I think it was last year. It kind of seemed like that, where I was like, okay, this looks good. I don't know how many people are actually going to watch it, but all I keep hearing about is Saltburn and Barry Keoghan and Barry Keoghan's things that we see on screen. People are really excited about that, and so I need to see this movie. I'm very excited. I was trying to see if I could see it before this one, but I think I want to talk about that one in a little bit more detail later on. Maybe I could do that as a Oscar review sort of thing before the Oscars. Which brings me, real quick. So if when I'm going to put that list in the comments below, all the movies that I wanted to see and didn't get to see yet. If you have any that you're like, hey, I saw that one and that was really good, prioritize that one. Please let me know because I want to know out of these what I should watch first. Yeah. But that brings me to a couple other things with channel updates. Starting with, because I was talking about the Oscars, I'm not going to do a subbies video this year. I think I'm just going to can that. Because not a ton of people watch them, which is fine. They were fun to do, no matter what, and a lot of people would vote on them. But the video just takes entirely too long to edit, and I could be doing other videos talking about those movies in place of it. And I think for this one, I'm going to want to talk about a lot of these, specifically, I think Zone of Interest that looks really harrowing. Saltburn probably. Yeah, so I'm going to probably use that time to do one or two other videos on, like, kind of like what I was doing in years past with, doing either one or two at a time for the Best Picture nominees. So I'll take that time to do that. Other things for next year, I am very excited. There's a lot of, I'm going to also do my top anticipated list in January as well. That'll probably come out like second week or something of January. But I am very excited because there's just a ton of movies coming out next year. I'm really excited for that aren't like they're sequels, but they're not huge franchise sequels. Some of them, we've got Dune 2. We've got, well, you know what? I'm not going to say because I don't want to give you a hint as to what is going to be on my top most anticipated. But yeah, so we've got a lot of those coming out. Very, very excited. Also very excited because every year I get to kind of, based on stuff that's coming out, revisit or visit for the first time franchises that I haven't talked about yet that are some of my favorites. This year I got to do Indiana Jones and I got to do The Hunger Games. Next year we have Avatar, the series, Last Airbender, the series coming out. So I'm going to be able to talk about that a lot, and I'm very, very excited. Plus a couple other things for Geek Week that I'm debating on a few of them for this coming year, but I'm really, really excited because I have a couple that I'm going back and forth between. Oh man, what else? I'm hoping next year. I always get really stressed about this because I know these videos are going to take a while, and I want to do them right, but there's also always other movies that come out that I want to do reviews for in a timely manner. And I know that even if I plan it out for the summer, there's going to be movies that pop up that I didn't know about until then that I'm going to want to do. But I'm hoping that over the summer, I can at least do one for the first of the three. I want to do those kind of movie like discussions, like going through a whole movie, not like maybe not watching it, but like going through the movie and giving my thoughts on it, kind of in real time about like going through the entire thing, not just a brief overview. I want to do them for High School Musical because these movies, every time I watch them, there's just so many ridiculous things that I absolutely love about those movies. And I think it'd be really fun because I got some thoughts. I got some conspiracy theories on these movies. But I watch them every year with my brother. We love watching them because they're fun and nostalgic and ridiculous and catchy. And apparently people liked, the High School Musical, it's the top 10 High School Musical songs video. I don't even remember why I did that. That was so random. But people like that one. So I figured maybe I'll take a swing at that one, and at least do at least one of them. Maybe I can do one a year, just whatever. Maybe it won't take me as long as I think it's going to. But, yeah. And what else for next year? Hey, maybe I can do some reviews like this at nighttime. You might have noticed that I never do a review at nighttime, except for the Polar Express one, because I had very specific lighting for that. And that's because my phone, I love it. It's great. But it just, I don't know. It's like I can't have good lighting in here for some reason. And it always looks like shit. So it's always during the day, which is why I've been doing them early Sunday or Monday mornings when I film them. So that's why I've been having a lot of weird sun going in and out in a lot of the last couple of videos, if you've noticed that. So sorry about that. Lighting's never been my strong suit. But I should be able to, control the sun. That's on me. Not bad. Cool. What else? Other channel updates. I said last year I was going to update, kind of streamline the movie in the middle logos and brands and update them and everything. And then I just didn't. I think I got caught up in a bunch of stuff, but I'm really going to start thinking about that. The look, of like the logos and everything and the title cards and all that. I still don't know. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I really don't know if I have to do the COPPA thing anymore. I think I said I was going to stop that last year too. But I don't know. I feel like the thing on the channel now is that like I try to, design the title cards and everything around how the movie's look is on the posters and everything, and that's fun. And I think it sets the tone. So I may just keep doing it, to be honest with you, because I feel like it sets the tone, and I have a lot of fun trying to replicate these posters. That is really, really fun. So I don't know. Maybe I'll continue that. If you're like, why is this man still doing this? He doesn't even have that many subs to be monetized. It's more of a fun thing, and if I ever get to that point, to cover my ass, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. But on that note, got up to 480 subs on the channel this year, which again, it's like in big YouTube numbers, that's a drop in the bucket. But guys, I am just so thankful for everybody who subs and watches. And it's weird. It always goes up in like ups and downs, like fluctuates. Like it'll be a lot and then nothing and then a lot again, depending on the videos. I never know what you guys are going to like, to be honest with you. I really, it blows my mind that the Sweet East got as many views as it did. Like I was really surprised about that. But also really glad. And then like really classic movies like Polar Express and Psycho didn't get that many views, which is interesting. It's not just the way of how people click on everything and what they're interested in at the time. And maybe it's those old ones that a lot of people are like, all right, I've already heard enough everything I can about these, but I still like to talk about them here and there, especially for the holiday ones, But I think the channel was at like 360 or 380 or something at the beginning of the year, so I'll take it. And you know what? 480 subs means that hopefully, I would hope by the end of next year, we're going to be a 500 sub channel, guys, and that blows my mind. And even again, even the view counts, 27, 30 views used to be my standard. That was like the normal when I first started the channel. Now it's like, oh, it only got 27 views. Like videos are getting like well over 100 views, if not more, at a time, which again seems ridiculous to be like, oh, okay, you got 100 views, yay. But it's just cool because it shows that you guys like the videos, and I'm really appreciative that I really am happy that you guys are liking what you're seeing with the videos and how they're done. And just the types of videos and which ones I'm talking about and everything. It's really cool to see because it is just, even if it's not a terrible amount, it's still just the numbers are growing, which is cool because then, it shows to me what you guys want to see more of. Which I guess brings me to my last point, which is I'm going to put on Instagram sometime in the next couple of days a poll of just a bunch of questions about the channel, about what you like about it, what you don't like about it. Things, different segments you would want to see more of, because it's so hard, it's hard because there's so many movies and I can only do so, I think I do like between 35 and 45 videos a year or something like that. It's tough because there's so many movies. I want to do them all, but then that doesn't even leave room for old movies or the TV shows or the other segments that I do, like in defense of, or which I try to do at least one of those a year. Or think pieces, which I did one of those and I haven't done it again. But I have other things I want to talk about. So I want to get your guys' opinions on what you want to see, what you like about the channel, get some feedback on different things. So look out for that, and kind of just answer what you feel, and just let me know what you would want to see more of. I'm also going to ask which movies you definitely want me to talk about next year. And I'll look out for those and try to get those in some form or another. Even down to like, would you guys like if I took one of the videos per month and did these were all the other movies that I saw this month, and do it that way? For me personally, the more I think about it, I mean, that's what I do now, and I get to talk about them more in depth, and it's at the end of the year and everything, so it's cool. I get to do it all at once. Plus, sometimes I'll see like the movies that I saw and did a review on that month, and I don't get to see any others. And sometimes I'll see a ton. But that's a question. I'll ask that one too. So look out for that. Yeah, and I'm excited. We just I feel like the channel is streamlining a little bit more now. I kind of get what I'm doing. I have it down to a system. I'm still. I know the end of the year I kind of went over 8 to 10 minutes on a lot of these videos, but I'm still going to try to keep them at more like 8 to 10 minute ones. Just keep them kind of concise. But yeah, just let me know what I'm going to put it in Instagram and everything. Just let me know what you guys want to see, what you guys are feeling about everything, because as much fun as I have doing it, it's for you guys to watch. So yeah, those are all the movies that I saw. I'll put all the ones I didn't see in the comments below, and please tell me which ones you really liked and I should prioritize, and then hopefully I'll be able to talk about a bunch of them in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, look out for my top 10 of the year, my top 10 anticipated of next year, my Poor Things review. And then in January, I'm going to have one other video that I've never done before. I'm really, really, really excited to do it because it's something I kind of want to do a little bit more of, if only once a year. Yeah. Guys, thanks for watching. And to anybody who's watching this later, thanks for getting all the way through if you watched the whole thing, or even just little bits and pieces. And I will see you guys next year. I had to do that joke. But seriously, I'll see you guys. Thank you for subscribing and commenting and liking and sharing. It means the world to me. I really, really love doing this, and it makes it feel worth it to actually do it when people like what they see. So, all right. I hope you guys have a really great New Year's, a safe New Year's, and don't stress too hard about resolutions. Do them, but don't stress too hard about them or having everything be perfect. Live your life and enjoy it. I'll see you guys next year. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle.